You're listening to the Fantasy 40 podcast with Andrew Burke, John DeBari, and Matt Walker. Yahoo!
Welcome back. We are back with another episode of the Fantasy 40 podcast, a special Thanksgiving edition. We're just going to be looking at the games on Thursday and a little bit of who we're thankful for. Wishing Burke was here today, but something came up last minute. He's missing as always. So we're going to jump into the games first and then talk about some players we're thankful for this year.
Yes, and the typical three-game slate on Turkey Day kicks off per usual in Detroit at Ford Field when the Houston Texans head to Detroit to face off against those Detroit Lions. Do you have the lines on this one?
Yeah. Houston's a 2.5-point road favorite, totals 51.5. It's the highest scoring game of the day by a pretty decent margin. So Houston's looking at 26.75. Detroit's looking at 24.25. They're both terrible. Detroit's really banged up. I can't imagine Galladay would come back, give them the extra rest. They'll have 10 days off after this. So I do like Houston, but I'm a sucker for Detroit on Thanksgiving, so I slightly lean Detroit, even though my head tells me Houston, my heart tells me Detroit.
Detroit needs to give up on the Turkey Day game. I know, for the longest time, it was the game no one wanted, so they kind of staked their claim to it, but we could do better. Let's pass Thanksgiving around a little bit more. It doesn't have to be in Detroit and Dallas every year. To your point with Kenny Galladay, yeah, I don't see him playing on a short week, but I also read some cryptic things on social media that he's not as hurt as, or might not be as hurt as he appears to be. Might be holding out for a contract because that was something that was going into the season, and maybe he's just not willing to play at all banged up, and it's already a somewhat lost season for the 4-6 Lions. So I hope that's not the case because we love seeing our boy on the field, but I can't imagine him playing on a short week. These Lions looked atrocious against the Carolina Panthers and P.J. Walker on Sunday. And although the Houston Texans barely play defense, I don't know how much better that gets on a short week. Hopefully we get DeAndre Swift back. I haven't saw anything today about where he is in the concussion protocol, but he is literally, him and Hawkinson in this tight end wasteland are the only ones I'm even going anywhere close to for the Detroit Lions. And on Houston, this is back half of the year, Deshaun Watson fire him up season. After he got that murderer's row out of his way early, he has been as advertised late. This will continue against the Detroit Lions with Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks. Unfortunately, Duke Johnson has failed to happen in his 2 starts. While David Johnson is out, this may be his last chance to do something of significance during David Johnson's time on the IR, but I wouldn't be hoping for it. I am sitting him where I have him unless I have literally nothing else because Duke Johnson has done nothing in his 2 starts. And even though this should be a game where he gets off, I'm no longer believing. I do not want any Texans running back until further notice.
I don't disagree. This is the least appealing game for fantasy anyway. You'd mentioned how bad Detroit looked last week. Stafford's playing with his thumb on his throwing hands fucked up, and that's never arguably the most important finger on both hands for a quarterback in the NFL, so that's not good. Missing his top receivers is no good. You mentioned Swift, still a question mark. This is nothing good on the Detroit side, and Houston, at wide receiver, they kind of play that musical chair thing where somebody different has a decent game every week. Our boy Coutier got in the end zone last week too, so it's hard to trust anybody really outside of Watson.
Well, what I like, and listen, again, we don't make light of injuries, but Cobb and Stills both left the game due to injury, so it's unlikely that they're going to play on this short week. So might be another Kiki Kuti week as the third wide receiver, but my thought would be consolidated target share to Cooks and Fuller. Maybe we get a little Jordan Akins, but that's only in the deepest of tight end premium league. So I think you can trust those two given the injuries because Cobb and Stills aren't going to be siphoning off any of those targets. But you're right. Ugly game. Stafford, bad finger, and he's still playing while all these other they're not lions. They're a different type of cat. They're just on the sideline refusing to play. I mean, what is Stafford doing out there? The gladiator just stacking up losses with subpar talent, on the field with him. So he deserves better. Fire Matt Patricia.
0% chance he retains his job, right?
Listen, from what I hear, the team loves him. Like, they're like going to bat for him, like coming out on social media defending him. So maybe we're all wrong. Who knows? But they haven't gotten any better since he's been there. So evaluate him as you should. Enough about that game. The 4:30 post-turkey dinner game where you're just sitting there half asleep with your pants unbuttoned, if you're even wearing pants at that point in the day. The Washington football team heads to Big D to face off against Andy Dalton and those Dallas Cowboys.
Spoken like a true East Coast guy as this game starts at like 1 in the afternoon on the West Coast. So it's
we pander to a certain demographic here on the 40.
Yeah, it's a lunchtime game for half the country. Yeah, Dallas is a 3-point favorite at home, total of 46, and the winner is the first team to get to 4 wins in that dog shit AFC East. Dallas is looking at 24.5 points, Washington 21.5 projected totals. I'm actually pretty excited for this game just because I want to see Gibson play. So I like a lot of the players on Washington, and Burke's not here to defend his Cowboys, so we can really just trash the shit out of them. I don't feel the same way about Dallas players, so Dallas is the home favorite. It's just the usual 3 they get. Washington's never going to be a massive producer on offense with Smith as their quarterback. However, he doesn't have to be with the defense they have. So I like Washington to win this one on the road and be the first one to 4 in fucking week 12.
It's whoever wins is atop the NFC East after Thursday night. And I guess I was just a week too early on Alex Smith because he had an abysmal 166 yards passing in their 20-9 win off the Bengals after I bet him under 250 the week prior, and he went for like 390. So I think I'm just a week ahead on my prop bets. But to your point,
real quick to cut you off, what do you think I'm hoping for in this game?
A tie.
And a boy, that's right.
you and me both, brother. But, so Antonio Gibson's season is fully upon us, and anyone that listens to this podcast knows how high we were on this guy, and I'm excited as well to watch him run against this subpar Dallas Cowboys run defense. Give J.D. McKissic less touches. He saw less last week. Give more to Antonio Gibson. Make him the true bell cow that he has shown he can be on this team. Keep feeding your boy Terry Mclaurin, who continues to prove me wrong week after week after week. And being that he's such a nice guy, I'm okay with it. If he were a total asshole, I would still be anti-Terry McLaurin, but he seems like the nicest person in the world. So I'm on the Terry McLaurin trade at this point in time. Keep feeding that guy. I have him in a few spots solely because of how high you were on him after the Senior Bowl. I picked him up. So keep that train rolling. Dallas can't stop the pass either. But Andy Dalton brought some semblance of competency to that offense. And if you have a Dallas skill position player, you're happy about that. Zeke continued to just trudge along in the Dallas Cowboys win last week. And then they brought in Tony Pollard, and he looked like he was absolutely shot out of a fucking cannon. Like, Tony Pollard deserves more touches in this offense. Yeah. Zeke, 21 touches, just under 5 yards a carry. Good for him. Still a long of 18. I don't know that he has a 20-yard run all season. Tony Pollard just said 5 for 60 and a touchdown. What an explosive 40-yard run to give him back that lead. Please get Pollard in like the 8 to 10 carry range. Zeke can still have 15 to 18 carries, but Pollard deserves more. Amari Cooper is the clear alpha while Andy Dalton is there. He's seen the most targets from Andy Dalton. CeeDee Lamb can levitate, and he's pretty impressive with his body contortion ability, but He's still more of a wide receiver too. And then unfortunately, Michael Gallup falls a distant third on that totem pole.
Yeah.
And they don't want to throw it, 30, 40 times. They had to throw it 32 times in comeback mode against the Vikings. They want to throw it sub 30 times and run this ball a lot in Dallas. And I think they can do it against Washington.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Real quick, Mclaurin, I sent you a thing on Twitter. I don't know if you saw it, but Terry McLaurin has the most receiving yards in NFL history through his first 24 games, even about 30 yards, 40 yards ahead of Jerry Rice even. So, nice pace.
The last name on that list was Terrell Owens at just over 1,000. So it just goes to show you the company that he's keeping. So, yeah, and he's been efficient. Had 7
and with
5 catches, 84 yards. That speaks volumes.
Dog shit quarterback play, too. Imagine what he'd be doing, with one of these good quarterbacks.
Yeah, anyone of competence. Well, he will next year because they hopefully will address – well, they got 3 wins. They might not be doing the right thing to get the quarterback they need, but imagine Justin Fields ends up a Washington football team starting quarterback. Brighter days are even ahead for Mclaurin. So goes to show how special this kid is because, yeah, he's doing a DeAndre Hopkins-esque effort early in his career where he's winning in spite of the quarterback play. So who do you think wins this game?
I like Washington. I think defensively it's just going to be too much for, I don't see Dalton being the guy that carries Dallas to the win here. So I think they bottle up Zeke pretty well. So I like Washington getting the 3.
So do I. I mean, I know Dallas gets a nominal 3 at home, but I think Washington's a better football team right now. So still kind of surprised by that 3 points.
Well, and it's the perfect thing for that division. Who the fuck would have thought in Week 12 the football team would be the top team? It's beautiful.
Vying for first place. Yeah, it's where we're at, John. So it's 2020. That's all I can say. All right, so now we move on to the nightcap, or as you would say, dinner for those West Coasters. And it is the Baltimore stricken with COVID Ravens head to Pittsburgh on the East Coast for the 8:20 game to face off against Slingin' Big Ben and those Pittsburgh Steelers.
Well, as we record this on Tuesday, there was talk, at least yesterday and early this morning, of this game possibly getting postponed or bumped since, like you had mentioned, the Ravens are riddled with the Rona. So this may not even happen. There's a small chance. But Pittsburgh is a 4-point home favorite, total of 45, which is low scoring, which is kind of the same as the Washington-Dallas game also, which is 46. But Pittsburgh's looking at 24.5 projected points, Baltimore 20.5. One of the lowest scores on the board, actually, for teams that are posted. Pretty surprising, given what we had expected from Baltimore to come into the year. And offensively, they haven't been what anybody wanted. They've all kind of taken a step back for various reasons. But look, Pittsburgh's undefeated for a reason. They're clicking on offense with those 3 wide receivers. Defensively, they've been pretty damn impressive. Baltimore's not going to bring anything new to the table that they haven't seen playing them twice a year for the last, several decades at this point. So I like Pittsburgh at home, especially if Baltimore doesn't get any of these guys back in time that are on the COVID list. I mean, it's going to be all Gus Edwards, which actually is a good thing, except it's Pittsburgh's defense, which sucks for him. But I just don't see Baltimore beating them healthy, and I certainly don't see him if they're missing all these guys.
Yeah, and that was J.K. Dobbins and Mark Ingram both tested positive, which is why you're speaking to the Gus bus and maybe a little sprinkling of Justice Hill. Well, yeah, there was just another report just under an hour ago that there were more positive tests this morning, so they did not release the names of those individuals who tested positive. But to the Pittsburgh Steelers run defense, since Devin Bush has gone down, they have not been nearly as stout at stopping the run. And even in a blowout loss, James Robinson put up 73 yards, 4.3 per carry on them. So I think you can now run on Pittsburgh, and that is what they will do with Gus Edwards, who is a load of a human being and is always productive when he gets the opportunity. So Gus is a Thursday slate breaker on DFS probably with that news. I was hoping that the J.K. Dobbins breakout tour would continue. But, of course, DeRona has to clip his wings just when it was about to happen. But what we did know before Mark Ingram got the coronavirus is that he is not a product of this offense anymore. He is taking a clear back seat to J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards in that hierarchy, and that's at minimum what we could ask for because Mark Ingram is done. He's dust. He's just not a running back anymore. He's a good leader. Keep him around in case there's injury. Give the young guys the rock. And while that won't happen this week, hopefully it will come playoff time. So if this game gets moved, it's probably not the worst thing for anyone because Baltimore is at a clear disadvantage being on the road in a must-win game for them against a hot Steelers team right now. So I don't even know what fantasy analysis to make. Lamar Jackson's done pretty well running against the Pittsburgh Steelers in his career, and he would have to be doing a ton of it if they were limited in their backfield. Because you're right, they're not bringing anything offensively in the passing game that Pittsburgh is not going to be able to minimize. They're good against the tight end, so while you have to start Mark Andrews, I doubt you're going to have a repeat of Week 11. Marquise Brown can't even get a pass. He can't even catch a pass anymore. He has been totally eliminated from this offense as Dez Bryant was the second leading receiver for them last week. And that statement is never a good thing, no matter what team Dez Bryant would be on in his career. So, yeah, it's ugly for the Ravens who touched it. It wasn't only touchdown regression that hit them. Offensive regression has hit them. They've been talking for weeks about plays are getting called out for him, which just speaks to the lack of creativity that they have in this offense. Why are you not scheduling more design runs for Lamar Jackson? Why are you not using someone like Marquise Brown on all these jet sweeps that it seems like the entire rest of the NFL is using, but you're not trying to get your 4-3 speedy wide receiver who you can't throw a pass to the ball in space? I mean, the Monday Night Football game, how many quick hits did Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp get where they just broke long plays after it? Like, it seems like the only way they can scheme Marquise Brown is just on goes and hope that they hit. Like, you have to get more creative with them. Do it with Devin Duvernay as well. You have speed on this team. They do not leverage it. They have Willie Snead running slot routes. They have Dez Bryant coming in for catch and fall passes. The NFL's right. They're not being creative. They are predictable. And it's upsetting because they were such a fantasy powerhouse last year. And you can't even really start Lamar Jackson with any confidence right now.
No.
It's upsetting.
Quick question for you. What would you trade for Gus Edwards going forward in a Dynasty League? Currently 25, restricted free agent after this year. He's either A, going to move on, or B, kind of be the 1B there behind Dobbins if they get rid of Ingram. So he's got better fantasy days ahead of him no matter what happens next year.
Yeah, the restricted free agent thing, I don't know whether that struck me immediately as a negative because he's going to, best case, share in the backfield with J.K. Dobbins in Baltimore. You're right, they're going to get out from under Mark Ingram, but they run it enough where he could see 15 carries in a game, so it's not the end of the world. If he were to go elsewhere, I think he's just a quality running back who's been underutilized to this point in his career because, again, when he gets touches, he's successful. I'm not going to give up a first for him. I'd give up a late second if I'm a contender. I would trade a guy I'm probably not as keen on, like a young guy. I don't know off the top of my head who I'm thinking about, but if someone wants to get out from Gus or to potentially try to sell high, I would be a buyer. I think he's worth the risk at this point in time. But I don't think you even have to give up a second to get him, honestly. You might be able to give up a third. And if it's a third, I'm doing it all day.
That was kind of where my thought process was. I was going to start throwing out some offers in leagues where I'm screwed at running back.
The league I need him most, Infinity Wars, I had him and I cut him early, early this year. I could really use a Gus Edwards infusion right now, but when they drafted Dobbins, I moved on because I said he just got pushed down pecking order too far, and I went with some younger guys who have not panned out. So that one falls on me. But that ends with a third. And no, let's not get out of this game. Juju might not play. It's a short week. I don't know that he does play. So that just very much consolidates the targets between Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool. Are they both must starts, even against his Baltimore Ravens pass defense?
I think we talked about it a little last week. I think all three of them are must starts for the remainder of the year, and especially if one of them's missing, the other two are just plug and play every week. I mean, granted, depends what kind of depth you have, and there's certain teams that are stacked, so you could be in one of those freak scenarios. But the upside's so massive with both of them, as we've seen Claypool get in the end zone at a ridiculous clip, and Johnson's getting just ridiculous target volume. So the upside for both have the wide receiver one upside each week. You can't say that for 90% of the wide receivers in fantasy.
Yeah, Deontay Johnson had 16 of Big Ben's 46 targets. So Big Ben threw it more than I thought, but 16 is still a big number unless your name is Keenan Allen. So turn that into 12 for a 111. Claypool got his touchdown. Eric Ebron scored, and if Juju doesn't play, I'm going to go ahead and say Eric Ebron touchdown dance against the Ravens on Turkey Day football. But, yeah, they just keep rolling out pass catchers. It could even be a James Washington sneaky game from the DFS perspective. But what was supposed to be a highlight game might fall victim to 2020 and end up a one-sided whooping or get moved off of Thursday Night Football. So I guess we shall wait and see. But that's the Thursday slate. We're not going to tackle Sunday right now because it's just too early. What we're going to transition into is a good old faithful. What are we thankful for? And if you've listened to the 40, this is not always a good thing. So John is much more prepared, seems eager to jump right out of the box with his first what he is thankful for. So let's roll a couple of these out and tell the people what we're thankful for, John.
I'm gonna build slow because not a lot of people play IDP or care, but in a couple of spots, Josie Jewell, Micah Kaiser, and Jeremy Chin have really saved several of my IDP leagues this year. I've been stashing Kaiser for 3 years now, Jewell for 2 years, and they were both guys that started slow as rookies and didn't necessarily have a role. Kaiser got hurt, and then I tried to get Jeremy Chin everywhere this year in draft season, and all three of them are producing at, number one weeks at their position, and they're all pretty steady producers all year. So I'm super thankful for them because they all saved me in IDP this year.
That is extremely kind, John. And I'm glad that you started off on a positive note because I'm going to do the same. And I'm extremely thankful for DK Metcalf's 3-cone drill at the Combine because that allowed me to get him in far too many places. And DK Metcalf, currently the wide receiver 5 in PPR leagues, also right under his teammate Tyler Lockett, who has made his season on the back of those Arizona Cardinals and their lack of ability to cover him because they're focusing on Metcalf. But I am just extremely thankful that this freak of a human being was not able to change directly quickly enough for all of my league mates and let him fall to me because he is an absolute monster. He is a clear top 5 dynasty wide receiver right now, and he is getting better. Every broadcast they talk about how his route running is getting refined. He's still as freaky fast and athletic as he's been, and he is tied to Russell Wilson. Scary days are ahead for people playing against DK Metcalf in fantasy. He can and will put a 20-touchdown season on his resume in the next 3 years.
That's a good one. I will use that to go to my next one. Russell Wilson. I have him in several leagues. I got him early in a lot of spots before he kind of popped, as a third-round pick, so I was able to scoop him up early in a lot of leagues. So I have tons of Russell Wilson. Right now he is quarterback 2 on the year pretty much everywhere. And there's a few leagues where injuries and other stuff to my running backs and wide receivers, underperformance, have really sunk those teams. But Wilson having the great year he has kind of helped balance that out. And pretty much every league I have him, I'm looking at a playoff berth, if not a bye in the first round of the playoffs already. So thank you for your monster year, Russell Wilson.
He started off with his hair on fire, and he is looking a little mortal these last few weeks. But Just in time, he will be facing my Philadelphia Eagles on Monday Night Football, and he will just incinerate them. So that's going to be one hell of a way to end the weekend for this Eagles fan. But, yeah, so let's stay on quarterback, and let's talk about Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is amazing for such a short and stout human being. Even on what would be considered somewhat a dud on his last Thursday night game, he still put up a reasonable passing stat line. He's not just a running quarterback like some of these other guys, and I'm even more thankful for him because I own him in a few spots where I have Lamar Jackson. And Lamar Jackson, as I said on the Thanksgiving Day preview, is he's not a sure thing right now. He's still getting yards with his legs. He has 575 rushing yards. He's second among quarterbacks behind the aforementioned Kyler Murray. But he only has 3 touchdowns. Kyler Murray has rushed for 10 rushing touchdowns already this season. He's unbelievable. Not as gaudy passing stats as some may expect, but still 19-8 TD to interception ratio. Kyler Murray, I know a lot of people doubted him and his ability to really just be this alpha Dynasty quarterback, but he's up there in the conversation with Patrick Mahomes as the Dynasty QB1 because those legs aren't going to go away from him as easy. He protects himself pretty well. He's not reckless when he runs, and he's super elusive, so you're not getting clean shots on him either. So I am super thankful that I was smart enough to get Kyler Murray in my rookie drafts as well because Lamar Jackson is something I am not thankful for at present.
So I'm going to stick with fan favorites of this podcast. The Packers went ahead and drafted A.J. Dillon and scared the dog shit out of Aaron Jones owners, which I have him everywhere. So I stuck with him. I got a bunch of lowball offers and nothing popped off the page. I ended up not trading him anywhere, and he's one of my most owned players, and he has rewarded me handsomely this year. One of the top running backs in fantasy, again, getting in the end zone, catching a ton of balls. He's a fantasy stud. We've been a fan since he came out of UTEP. And, I had faith and held on to my guy, and I've been pretty rewarded. And he's carried a couple of my teams, too. So I'm super thankful for keeping Aaron Jones everywhere.
Well, this is a tangent. I'm not going to count this as mine, but I do have to say I am not thankful for Aaron Rodgers and his continued propensity for stealing Aaron Jones' short yardage touchdowns with these sub 5-yard touchdown passes and runs that he seems to take great pleasure in doing. So Aaron Jones could easily have had 3 to 4 more touchdowns on this season, even though he has missed a few games. Aaron Jones only played 8 games in the season, has 8 touchdowns. So he is averaging a touchdown a game, but he could easily be north of 10 touchdowns already, but in where the Packers have scored and how they have scored this season. But something I am thankful for is the chaos that is the running back position. And most specifically, the fact that James Robinson is currently running back 4 and our boy Antonio Gibson is running back 10 in PPR leagues. It makes my heart happy to see this volatility. And then you just add on Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who's 11, DeAndre Swift, who's 15, and Jonathan Taylor, who's 16. That is some rookie running back infusion in the RB1, high-end RB2 class. And I am here for it because it means names like Melvin Gordon and James Conner and David Montgomery will all be cycled out in the next few years into irrelevancy.
Yeah. And it doesn't help. There's a lot of, on paper, a lot of good rookie running backs coming in, especially this year and possibly next year if anybody goes back to college.
The Chicago Bears better address the running back position. David Montgomery is not the answer for them. They've tried long enough. Go get you a complete back to try and do something with this offense. He has a target squarely on his back. James Conner will not be re-signed in Pittsburgh, and if he does, it's going to be on like a super cheap deal. Interested to see what the Steelers do next year because I don't think they have a back on their roster. Benny Snell's not the answer. Anthony McLaurin's a good change of pace guy, but he's not a starter. So be interested to see what the Pittsburgh Steelers do. And then in Denver, they're tied to Gordon for I think another year financially, and they still have Philip Lindsay, so he's going to be there. But he's better in a timeshare. And I know he had a nice 2-touchdown game, but he still didn't look good doing it, in my opinion, last week against the Dolphins. And it'll just be another year older next year. If you have Melvin Gordon and your trade window isn't closed and you're not winning this year, you better sell him as quickly as humanly possible.
Imagine Gus Edwards on the Steelers.
Wow, 2,000 yard season for the Bucs.
3,000. 3,000.
Yeah, not one reception on the. he'll be AJ Dillon's rookie year in college. No catches for the Bucs. Just 360 carries.
On that note, I'm going to do what I do best here and somehow turn this thankfulness into a negative. I'm thankful for Christian McCaffrey and Austin Eckler, who I have. It seems like a lot of teams where I have one, I have both. So, Eckler sounds like he's 50-50 for this week, but then you wonder why even rush him back at this point. The Chargers are going nowhere this year. Kind of same thing with the Panthers. What's the reason to bring him back? The point is, with both of them on the shelf, the teams where I have them have really shit the bed, but they're good teams. They're just missing these two guys. So these teams are, I'm looking at a top 4, top 5 draft pick now. So I'm going to plug a guy like that into a team where I have McCaffrey and Eckler, and I should come back next year. And I think I have them together on 3 or 4 teams. So I should come back next year with a top rookie talent to plug and play with both of these guys. So thank you for both getting injured and tanking my year, because you're going to make me a lot better in 2021.
I like that, and yes, I've fallen victim to that in a few spots. I did see Austin Eckler doing some legwork on the old Twitter, and it's being projected that if he doesn't play, and I don't think he's playing this week, but next week is a possibility, and if not week 14, which, to your point, the Chargers aren't winning anything this year. But I think we operate in one mindset, and these players and coaches operate in a different one, where they have to show progress. They can't just run the string out because their quote unquote fantasy season is over like us managers can. So if they have talent and they're healthy, they're going to play. I know I've been cautiously pessimistic about Christian McCaffrey, but it's because he got injured, came back, got injured again. So I think the mentality is a little different than Austin Eckler, who's just working his way back from his initial injury. So I still think there is a non-zero chance that Christian McCaffrey doesn't take another snap for the Carolina Panthers this year. But I do believe Eckler will play. It'll just be probably when it's irrelevant for your teams, which what do you care at that point? If you're already out of the playoffs, just hope he doesn't get hurt come weeks 14, 15, 16, and 17.
Correct.
We'll see where that goes. So on the negative, I'm thankful that Adam Gase is still a head coach in the NFL. And it's just because there are so many good gifts that he has bestowed upon us at this point in time. And the Jets clearly are using him as a shit shield for this inept franchise. And he will likely be gone after the season. But it is still nice to see him on the sidelines and be able to use the gifts and talk about how bad the Jets are because of Adam Gase. At this point in the season. What is interesting is how Joe Flacco seems to have unlocked this offense somewhat that Sam Darnold was incapable of doing. It's just because Joe Flacco doesn't give a shit, and he's throwing bombs after bombs to Rashad Perriman and Denzel Mims, I'll have to admit that I may have been wrong on him as well. I was not too high on the Baylor product, who lasted till the late second round for these Jets, but so far so good in his young season. He started off injured as well, but he has impressed me. So hopefully they get a real NFL quarterback in there, say a Trevor Lawrence in the future, and they might have the makings of something if they can get that offensive line right, because they will have Mims, they will have Crowder. Hopefully you can address running back in some condition, and maybe they re-sign Perriman, but they could turn this around pretty quick with, say, a Eric Bieniemy at their head coach, offensive coordinator position in 2021.
Look, there's a ton of problem. Like you said, I'd heard somebody on the radio earlier talking about the Jets' chances of going undefeated, and they're like, well, if they get Darnold back, I think they'll win 1 or 2 down the stretch. And just like what you said, I think they're worse with Darnold. Flacco actually seems to be running the offense better. So I don't.
That's why they want to get. That's why they want to get Darnold back in there.
Yeah, that's true.
And win any games?
Yeah, they're a bad team, bad coach. They suck. So, I mean, you said getting a coach in there, see what happens. I don't think it even helps them. They're fucked. They're fucked for a couple of years. I don't see how the Jets have a path to getting better. They need a quarterback. They need a running back. Wide receiver seems okay on paper. You're going to have a hard time convincing me that's not the worst franchise in the NFL right now, especially if you consider coaching.
Well, they are 0-10, so I don't think you would have to convince anyone that they're the worst franchise in the NFL right now.
That's true.
And they don't have much to speak of on defense because they just like trading pieces away like Jamal Adams and the like, who are building blocks for defenses. But, there's only 32 head coaching jobs, as they say in the NFL. So someone is going to be itching for that opportunity. I will say one more time that I am thankful for the absolute uncertainty at the tight end position in 2020 because Kelsey's holding that top spot, and then Darren Waller's there, who showed improved last season. Mark Andrews somehow is tight end 3 right now, and it's on the strength largely of 6 touchdown catches. But just the volatility where a Robert Tonyan is 6, Dalton Schultz is 9th, Jimmy Graham is tight end 11, my boy Eric Ebron still a tight end 1 at 12. I love the tight end position, and I love some of these names that are littered among the top spot that were gotten late in your redraft. So it makes my heart happy that the tight end continues to be such an uncertainty in 2020.
It's funny you said that. 2 guys I'm thankful for are Dalton Schultz and Logan Thomas. So you got Schultz is a tight end 1, Thomas is a tight end 2. I threw a ton of money at them in Fab after week 1 because in several spots I had shit at tight end to begin with, and every penny I spent on them was totally worth it. So they've helped me out a ton because I had nothing, and very thankful for what they did. Another guy, pivoting to running back, who I had stashed, just crossing my fingers wishing for a Saquon Barkley injury, was Wayne Gallman, who finally has kind of produced a bit and has been a pretty steady RB2 week in and week out this year, and that's helped me with a lot of, the running back injuries and dog shit at the position. So I'm thankful for Wayne Gallman, which is something you don't hear too often.
You do not, and even the Giants weren't too thankful for Wayne Gallman at first when they went and dug up the corpse of Devonta Freeman to try to lead that backfield after Saquon went down, when Wayne Gallman was clearly the guy they just should have used all along. He is produced in limited action. So why go get Devonta Freeman? You have Gallman there. Elevate another guy. Use Deion Lewis a little bit. Gallman deserves better, and Freeman's injury cleared the deck for him. It's going to lead to some good fantasy finish for Wayne Gallman, and interested to see if he's a free agent next year, because I don't think he's a starter, but he's always a guy behind the guy that if someone gets injured, he could win you some games, just like he's doing this season for a number of people. I'm a pretty big Wayne Gallman guy.
Yeah, I've had him stashed.
Yeah, listen, it's you could stash worse than the backup for the Giants, and unfortunately for that big Saquon injury, who knows what that beginning next year even looks like for him. It's a pretty catastrophic knee injury.
Yeah,
and let's just be thankful for the rest of these backup running backs that have produced. Mike Davis has come in and did his best Christian McCaffrey impersonation. Boston Scott proved valuable while Miles Sanders was out. Gio Bernard does what Gio Bernard does and just wins whenever he is the clear starter in Cincinnati for the Joe Mixon injury. Not so much in Seattle, where it's been a mixed bag, but you got a DJ Dallas start week. You got a Carlos Hyde start week out of it. It's nice when the backup comes in and provides above replacement level value. The only one who failed to succeed was your boy Chase Edmonds when he was given the keys to the kingdom for a week and fell flat on his face. And then Kenyon Drake hurried himself back real quick and said, "No, this is my backfield. Let me get a junk touchdown when I can't even average 2 yards a carry." But that's neither here nor there. So thankful for some of these backup running backs, save for Duke Johnson as well, who didn't do what I had hoped and prayed he would do when David Johnson was out. But take us out of here with one more thankful for.
One more thankful. You had mentioned the backup running backs this year. Kind of wide receivers that were either backups or totally off the radar to start the year, but guys that I liked before the year was Robbie Anderson, and then in season I was able to grab a ton of Tim Patrick. and Patrick's not a league winner, but he's pretty decent back end filler at the wide receiver position. And Robbie Anderson's obviously depends on your scoring and everything, but he's a borderline wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 this year. I think most leagues he's around 13th in points. But I talked about him all offseason. I thought Robbie would have a good year, and he popped, and he's helped me in a ton of spots. And Tim Patrick, like I said, my wide receiver 3 every week, I'm very happy with his production.
Can't argue that. I'll dive one more, and I'm thankful for Stefan Diggs. I am a huge Stefan Diggs fan. I was concerned that his move from Minnesota to Buffalo would negatively impact his fantasy value. And while I do not own Stefan Diggs, I do not believe anywhere. I am just such a huge fan. So for him to still be wide receiver 6 with only 4 touchdowns on the season, he is second in the league in targets behind only Keenan Allen with 102. He's averaging over 10 targets per game from still somewhat erratic Josh Allen. But I am very happy that we have continued to see Stefan Diggs produce, albeit in a slightly uncertain environment in upstate New York.
Yeah, it's a good one. I thought he was going to have a real bad year with Josh Allen, but Josh Allen also had a lot better year than I was anticipating too. So,
he's had one of these. He's had one of these. We've seen some Josh Allen lows for a few weeks, but his highs are as high as anyone in this league. So, Josh Allen has largely been Josh Allen this year, in my estimation. That he can win you a week, he can lose you a week.
That is true. Well, that ought to do it. Does that ship anybody else you're thankful for?
I'm thankful for you, John. And I'm thankful for Andrew. It's been a shitty year, by and large. And this is a nice reprieve from the shit. So I would be remiss if I didn't say I was thankful for you guys.
That is true. For an hour and a half each week, you can forget all the awfulness in the world.
That's all we can ask for.
So that should do it. Happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy the games out there. Shall we coin this Antonio Gibson Day? Fingers crossed. So hopefully that happens. But other than that, enjoy your bird. For myself, John DeBari, my co-host Matt Walker, for Missing in Action, Andrew Burt, we are the Fantasy 40, and we are out.
Gobble, gobble.
Fuck, I hate turkey.
I like it one day a year. So I'll suffer through it. I slather it in gravy. I like it after the fact. I make some nice turkey salad sandwiches, stuffing, cranberry sauce. So I moisten it up, get that mayonnaise and some ranch in there, and I'll show you how to do it.
I dislike most of the Thanksgiving food, so this year actually I'm not even going. We drive home Wednesday night. Then I go to work Wednesday night. Then Thursday, my wife and kids are going to be with my in-laws anyway, so I'm just going to sleep after driving and working. So I'm just skipping it. I'm going to watch football, sit at home by myself. I'm not going to miss any of it.
But you'll see the football. That's a beautiful Thanksgiving, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, I'm going to sleep on my couch, and I'll probably make like a chicken sandwich for myself.
There you go.
No, what I'm going to do, fuck that. I'm going to have a nice Thanksgiving pizza.
Oh, even better.
Yeah.
Teach those pilgrims a lesson, John.